don't be silly. Don't continue to do what you know you shouldn't. Don't be afraid of the devil versus the devil you don't. You know what I mean? Like it's all a fight. I mean, it's all a battle. You have to get up every morning and try to solve your next problem. But if you know you have a problem, then at least solve the ones you know.
Hmm.
They come. So
Yeah.
I knew this was an issue and knew that it had to be faced. And on top of all that, I didn't feel like principle wise I was doing the right thing.
Hello, and welcome to the Private Practice Owners Club. I'm Nathan Shields, and I got my good friend Marc Moore from Moore Physical Therapy, founder and CEO. He's also a good friend of mine from being in physical therapy school at NAU Physical Therapy Program back in the day. That was a couple decades ago. It's been a long time, man.
1996.
That's right.
It was
99. Our graduation was 99.
yeah, we would have met in 96.
Oh, that's right. We go back almost 20 years or
Yeah.
30 years. Holy
Yeah.
crap. I
Yeah.
just really aged myself, dude.
You weren't
Um,
married.
I was not
You
married
were
at
a
that
single
time.
guy.
That's right. That's right. Well, cool. Thanks for joining me again. I've had Marc on the podcast before, and it's good to have you back, man. Thanks for coming.
You bet.
Well, hey, I'm really excited to bring you on because I think it was a couple of years ago now that you and I started having conversations because you were seriously looking at how to increase your average reimbursement rate. And one way to do that, and I know you've done some other things, and maybe you'll share with us in terms of negotiating with insurance companies. But in
Mhm.
this particular situation, why I wanted to talk to you today is because um, you were seriously looking at dropping United Healthcare, one of your lower payers, right? So give us a little backdrop on that. What led you to the idea that I seriously need to consider this action?
Yeah, it was, and this will be no surprise to anybody in the space. It was both the fact that they wouldn't pay a reasonable amount, as well as their administrative burden was so high.
Hmm.
And that's the kind of uh, formula for us that we've dropped insurances that are the highest admin coupled with the lowest pay. And we've now dropped two insurances, both United Healthcare about a year and a half ago,
Hmm.
and May 24th. I remember the day
Yeah.
because it was a liberating day, the day of liberation. I've always been frustrated with the administrative side of what United Healthcare, how they would operate. And they've actually gotten a lot worse recently with all of their authorization requirements. It's been so nice to be like, that doesn't apply to me. So,
Hmm.
um, anyway, so uh, and then more recently, we got rid of one of our Medicaid options here in the state of Arizona.
Hmm.
And that one was the same thing. That one was especially heavy in administrative burden.
Yeah.
And so um, we got to a point where it was like, okay, with United Healthcare, the dance would be we'll just see two of them uh, every 30 minutes.
Right.
Um, then it'll make it worth it, right?
Yeah.
And as we sat down, decided, hey, this is just not who we are. Like,
Hmm.
we don't want to be McDonald's, no dig on McDonald's, but we don't want to crank this out. We want to be Red Robin.
Right.
We want to have some automations and some systems in place. We don't want to be mom and pop either,
Hmm.
but we want to have we don't want to just crank those out, double our notes, double the
Right.
other things that go along with that.
Right.
And our concern, I mean, I don't think any of your listeners will be like, "Oh, that surprises me," but our concern was, hey, are the doctors going to go, okay, well, no, we're not going to send over there now because we have to choose. Do they take this insurance? Do they take that insurance? That was the big concern. I was like, do we do this? Because we should have done it 8 years earlier. Now that I've done it, right? We should have done it years ago. I've been in business now for 22 years,
Hmm.
and we should have done it maybe even sooner than that. But um, and other people did. Other people were much more pioneer than I am. I'm more recently done this, but um, anyway, so those were the big decisions why we were doing. And then the other concern was you lose the relationship with the patient who you love and they love you and that is the bitter pill that you have to
Hmm.
swallow because the first concern about the doctors really has not turned out to be um, the reality of things. The reality is those
Really?
doctors, when I went told my doctors, the ones that we have a relationship with, they're like, dude, I wish I was as brave as you are. Like, I need to drop this, I need to drop that. They looked at you as respectable, and I think they, yeah, they respect your decision. They understand that, and so it hasn't been the big worry that I
Yeah.
should be.
Yeah, going back to it, I know when you were looking initially at the numbers, so in Arizona, the flat rate was what? 65,
60,
$75
yeah,
or something like that.
65.
65 a visit.
Yeah,
Obviously, your cost to see that per visit, see that patient per visit was significantly higher, I'm assuming.
totally. Yeah.
I mean, it's probably close to 20 bucks more than that per
Yep.
visit.
Yeah. It was like
I mean,
85.
so
Yep.
yeah, because I've said it before, you could just as easily just hand that patient a $20 bill as they walk in and let them leave. And it would
Yeah.
be about the same outside of the value that you provide but financially, yeah, it's
Yeah.
about the same as doing that, right?
Yeah.
Yet
I
we
had
still,
had a coach that said, because there's a guy who was saying, hey, why are you doing this? And I'm like, oh, this worry, that worry. He goes, I want you to do something. He goes, I want you to go home tonight when you sit down dinner table, and I want you to look over at your family and tell them, hey, I saw X film the number of patients today, and lost $20 each for each one of them coming in. And I did it. He challenged me to this. So I did it. I sat down and my daughter, who was like, oh, she'd have been like 17 years old. She looked at me like, why, Dad? I was like, I don't know.
yeah.
And it was like this thing, like, there's no good reason. Like, because I'm afraid of change, because I'm afraid of the unknown. I
Mhm.
mean, that was the reason, really.
It's wonderful to have coaches and mentors like that that are outside of our bubble and don't understand our worries and our concerns and our excuses, frankly.
Yeah.
And for them to put it like that and for you to have to actually face that and provide some kind of valid excuse that doesn't land with them
Yeah.
is a hugely valuable exercise.
Yeah.
And
My
so,
daughter's like, I don't get it. I don't either.
yes,
Your
exactly.
dad's an idiot.
But you're speaking to the industry at large, the private practice owners out
Sure.
there. They are somehow gonna do the mental gymnastics to make it work because they think other people need to or have to see that in you, right?
Yeah.
And there, I don't agree with it, but there is a belief that as a newer owner, taking some of those contracts could be worth it because you're trying to fill spots and you're going to have this minimum level of overhead anyways. And so you might as well take the added revenue because your expense line is going to stay about the same whether you take them or not. So you might as well. I can maybe grasp onto a little bit of that.
Hmm.
But at this stage, I mean, you already had three clinics going. You're relatively productive, right? Through across three clinics. You are profitable across the three clinics in total. And so thinking back 2 years ago, you and I spent probably a few hours on a screen share, if you recall, looking at your numbers
Hmm.
related specific to this one insurance. And I remember looking at your payer mix by percentage. And so if you recall, it was United Healthcare
15.
compared to your total visit number was what, 10, 15%,
Uh-huh.
right?
15.
Do you recall approximately what revenue percentage that equated to? The revenue from those
12.
insurance compared to the actual visits. It was 12%.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You were the first one to point that out to me and say, hey, look at this. It's not like you're going to lose 15% of your income.
Hmm.
You're going to lose this lower amount of your income. You're going to lose 15% of the work. You know what
Right.
I mean? You do.
Right.
And that was a shifting in my thought too. It's like, yeah, I didn't thought about that way. It's another reason to do it.
Yeah, because when I talk to people about it, usually that number falls somewhere around there, somewhere around 10% and could be as high as 20% according of their payer mix in visits. But when you look at the financial impact of dropping that insurance, that being 10 to 12%, was there any way that that made it a little bit easier to swallow? Like, man, we could
Totally.
find ways to make up the 10% in revenue that's going to be lost.
You couple that with the fact that some of those United Healthcare patients I'm now seeing still because their plan was such that they didn't have any different financial impact out of pocket for a out of network versus an in network. So we retained, I don't know this exactly, but I would say probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 20%
Hmm.
of the people. It's not 20, it'd probably be more like 10%, 5 to 10% of our United Healthcare. And those United Healthcare pays really nicely out of
Out of
network.
network.
They
Hmm.
are actually now our best payer. We now love United Healthcare
Yeah.
out of network, and
Yeah.
so uh, I haven't done that math exactly, but how much of that 12% that we were financially losing did we actually uh, gain
Hmm.
is another couple percentage points probably. So maybe we're down to
Oh.
only 9 or 8% of a loss
Hmm.
financially.
Right.
Um, so
Well, looking at it big picture, say yeah, a year later, and I know you don't have the numbers in front of you,
mhm.
but a year later, making that decision, was it an overall net loss or net gain to your profit margin by dropping that insurance?
No, it was gain. I would
Really?
say absolutely. Um, we found other ways to
Fill the
get more
schedule with
leads.
higher paying
Yeah.
insurances,
Yeah. I mean,
take the
you're
out of
always in the
networks.
process of maybe we took a little longer to hire and the next, maybe we didn't grow quite as fast, but we were on the positive side of all the visits, right? So now
Right?
our per visit rate goes up. And so
Your profit
um,
margin goes up.
it didn't hurt us.
No.
um,
Yeah, I
at
know
all.
people say this all the time on podcasts, and in this situation, I think it's appropriate because, and I don't like to ask it very often, but in this situation, what would you go and tell the Mark from 2 years ago that was in that fearful situation? What would you tell him?
I would just say, don't be silly. Don't continue to do what you know you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Um, don't be afraid of the devil uh,
Hmm.
versus the devil you don't. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like it, it's all a fight. I mean, it's all a battle. You have to get up every morning and try to solve your next problem. But if you know you have a problem, then at least solve the ones
Hmm.
as they come. So
Yeah.
I knew this was an issue and knew that it had to be faced. And on top of all that, I didn't feel like uh principle wise I was doing the right thing. Like somebody else who would say, "Hey, I dropped them a long time ago. That's not a acceptable amount to get paid." I'd be like, "Yeah, I wish I was that guy. That guy's braver than me."
I wish I was that principled.
As a principle, like it's true that it's not right that we're accepting that as an industry.
Right.
It's not right. And so, but I'm like, well, yeah, but I've got to pay the bills. Uh,
Hmm.
that's just it's just not true. Like
Yeah. There's some kind
it,
of disconnect, dissonance in our logic,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Because we think without the numbers in front of you, it's easy to make up some kind of stories like this is going to severely impact me financially. This is going to impact me, my reputation, because I'm not taking X insurance and the physician groups are going to be upset about it. That's the story we tell ourselves. And you found out that those things were lies.
The biggest challenge, yeah, exactly. What you said is accurate. You're lying to yourself. I was lying to myself. But the biggest challenge I had was um, with my staff, was
Oh.
saying to my staff, we're gonna drop this insurance because they were like, well, wait a second, who does that impact? And once they saw those names, those individuals, because now that I'm not directly in the clinic treating patients, I know some of those individuals from when I was years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of them I don't, and it's not my buddy who I'm going to see, day in, day out, week in, week out. And that's what was hard. It was hard to tell my staff, hey, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to tell these people. Um, in the case of in all the cases really, but primarily in the Medicaid um, insurance, we just said, hey, we're going to time this when in October is when the deductible re-ups. So we timed it to be around like August when we
Hmm.
started notifying them saying, hey, we're dropping this, dropped it in early September and said, if you can switch over to another plan. And we had a number of them that did.
Oh, okay.
So we
Yeah,
still
when is it
retain
time to
them.
re-up their Medicaid plans?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we retain them as patients. They got what they wanted, which is to stay with us and the care we were giving. But they just said, I'm going to switch over to this other plan, which
Mm,
was an acceptable payer for us. There are some
cool.
acceptable payers. We said, here's the ones that we will take. And so that was a good situation for us.
Yeah, and that's a little bit different situation in the state of Arizona because not all states have third-party Medicaid
Okay.
providers like that. So
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
like in a state like Alaska, you either have Medicaid or you don't. But
Okay.
in Arizona, they farm that out to third-party insurance companies that can
Right.
run the
Yeah.
insurance programs for them. So the Medicaid um, clientele has a choice between different Medicaid programs. So I do have to kind of throw that out there.
Interesting.
But
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about that because one of the first steps that I see if you're going to drop an insurance plan is you have to be really clear between you and that has to flow into your team that you provide such a value for your patients that going again that taking this insurance actually goes against our values.
Yeah.
And I know that's an exercise or a conversation, at least, that you had to have with your team for them to be on board and to get over this idea that we're going to be the martyrs, we're going to sacrifice, we're going to take the financial hit to see this insurance company for the benefit of our patients, rather taking a stand and saying, no, we provide X value and it's beneath us. Goes against our values to actually accept this insurance. How did that conversation, what did that exercise look like? How did you get on the same page with your team that they also now believed that there's no way that we should accept this insurance? How did that go about?
It's a great question because that really was the thing I spent the most time on. I showed them, I said, okay, we do have options in everything in life. We've got options. We could choose to see these are per diem, in United Healthcare's case, these are per diem patients. We could see, however many an hour we want. We could do this and kind of laid that out. Or we could do that, this other, and, and just kind of laid out the whole picture of what would this mean? What would this look like for
Did you
you?
share with them? I don't want to cut you off, but did you share with them some of the same numbers that you and I were looking at?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was very, very open with
Like
like
they understood that you were
what they
losing
get,
money
what we
per
get
visit.
paid,
Yep.
what it costs us to deliver care.
Right.
So if we're underneath in this current, we'd have to get up to here to make a profit to pay, and then say, I know you guys want the same things I want. You want to be able to increase your pay year over year. You want to be able to have additional benefits in the company. There's all these things that we would love to have, and those things become affordable when we increase our pay per visit to this level. And this is the impact this is having on us negatively. We have to do something. Choose this or choose this, or maybe you could come with an idea that I haven't thought of.
Hmm,
Bring them into the discussion, have them
totally.
propose ideas, then talk about what would that mean, their idea. And so it was very clear that in our organization, the choice was to do this, even though
Mhm.
it was hard. So
So you had to get your team on the same page and understand that we provide such a value that taking this insurance is not a benefit to the company, not to the owner, not to the company, not to them because it's going to infringe on their ability on your ability to provide them benefits or raises, et cetera, right?
yeah.
But what was the overall message then that what did you have to say for to the patients, right? I'm sure you guys kind of came together and had to come up with a unified story as to why you're dropping. And what did that look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, we made sure that we gave some notice. so that the patients weren't just, left high and dry.
Blindsided. Sure.
Um, we explained to them that they have other options, that we can see them still. We can see them on an out-of-network basis, and that we will be telling them exactly what that would look like to them financially. So we did the
Mhm.
work to look at what their out-of-network benefits were, and then said, here's your options. Here, you can continue. This is what it'll cost here. If you continue in an in-network basis, this is what it'll cost you. Here's some of the local options you have nearby. We
Mhm.
think that this physical therapy outfit over here would be a good decision, if that's what you
Mhm.
choose to do. Um, in fact, there was one individual that was particularly tough to see him go. He'd been with us for a while, and the physical therapist went with this individual to his first physical therapy appointment at the new facility.
How cool.
Kind of handheld him over and said, "Hey, everything's gonna be fine." Sat in the room with him. Um, and I was over at the office the other day when he came in, and it had been like a year since they'd seen him in the office. And he came in, and everybody just got up and ran to him and hugged him and like, "We miss you so much." And he was like, "Hey, I'm doing really good." And but he was coming back in to say, "I miss you guys," and
Uh-huh.
he'd had a good experience at the other
Right.
place, which was great. He was getting the care he needed, which was really what the big concern was
Right.
for our front office. So I think it kind of gave them that, okay, well, we took care of these individuals' needs as best we could, and they're getting the care that they need
Right.
elsewhere. So
Did you actually lay out a reasoning as to why you were dropping the insurance with those patients? Did you spell
oh
out the
yeah, we were straight up with
financial
them.
impact or whatnot? Did you share some of that?
Just generally, we just say, we can't afford based upon the time and the care that we give.
Right.
And a lot of people have been in other physical therapy facilities, and they've
Mhm.
sensed that what we do at ours is maybe a little different. I
It's
mean,
different. Right.
then they would sense, hey, these guys spend more time with me than my other experiences. And so it's not a difficult thing to say, oh, the additional time and effort and staffing that we have here to make sure that we are one-on-one with you is a different model than
Mhm.
having you do your exercises, kind of nearby, and we kind of watch from a distance, um, which is another model, and that's okay. It's two different things. If you want this, what we do, we can no longer get paid by your insurance company because they just don't pay us enough.
Right. Right.
So yeah, we
Yeah.
were straight up with that.
So you were very clear that, it's not affordable based on the experience that we want to provide and
Hmm.
the customer service that we want to provide. We can no longer accept this
Yeah,
insurance plan. And so it was pretty cut and dried. It sounds like you didn't wordsmith it too much. You were pretty straightforward. But
no,
it sounds like your team also had that same story. Like,
yep.
and I think that's an important part as someone's dropping an insurance, that the message has to be unified between everybody, because the last thing you want to see is a patient that talks to, say, a technician and gets one story, talks to
Yeah.
a provider, gets a different story, and then talks to the front desk and gets a different story. You guys had to be all on the same page to make this go
I
well.
think that was an area that you advised me in, and it was that was something we really focused on because of that. So I think
Yeah.
you helped me think about that beforehand, and I went to my clinic directors and I said, imagine if, I gave them that scenario and said, what would this look like? And I think they were just like, yeah, we better make sure that we communicate the
Mhm.
same thing across all three clinics and across all employees. And
Right.
um, so I don't think we were perfect at it, but I
Sure.
but I don't think we're perfect at most things, you know what I mean? But
Sure.
we did well.
So after dropping it, the backlash wasn't as severe as you had imagined.
No, it was all of the difficulty was pre-drop, pretty much.
Right.
Post-drop, it
All the
was
work
like,
on the front end kind of
yeah,
minimized that concern on the back end, right? That
right.
backlash.
Yeah.
Right.
Once it was over, it was like, yes.
But looking back, how long did it take for you to say that was a positive decision? Was it before the actual contract end date or was it
Yeah.
sometime after that?
It was probably once we all I felt like all of my team was on the same page.
So before the 90 days or 60 days, whatever it took to was up, you felt like that was a positive decision, no matter what the financial impact was after the fact. It didn't take months after that to figure that out.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Really?
I think that would be a fair statement. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but
All right.
in retrospect, I think that it was a good decision, and I knew
Mhm.
it before the 24th of May actually hit. So
Oh, I gotcha. And so how long was it before then that you decided to drop the other insurance plan?
the other one took about a year. I just recently dropped the other one.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
um, and why it took that long? I think I just didn't jump to it. I don't think
Okay.
I should have done it more immediately. There's really not. It's a much smaller. This represented I think like 1%, maybe
Oh,
2%
okay.
all of ours, and so
So that was easy.
they just got backburnered. And
Yeah.
I kept thinking I just need to get this done. Honestly, the thing that held me up probably for both of these was not having my contract in hand. So
Oh,
I was
okay.
sending off to this, health plan saying, "Hey, can you send me my contract? I don't have it here
Yeah.
anywhere."
Yeah.
Having to wait to get that back from them and all of that stuff was an additional
Yeah.
time frame. And so that's one thing I'm trying to do now is have all of my contracts in
Yeah.
a folder so that
Yeah.
it's like, okay, anytime I want to pluck it out. And actually, to that point, I have um, I have increased payment in three uh, insurances through simple negotiation
Well, that
recently.
was going to be my next question. So before you jump into that,
Yeah.
uh, did you try to negotiate with either of these plans?
Yes.
Which
Both.
ones? Both of them. And
Both.
so you got negative responses both times.
Yeah. United Healthcare was just like,
Kick kick breaks.
yeah,
Get out of here.
you were just not going to happen. Like no interest, no
Yeah.
negotiation.
Right.
The other one came back and increased what they were paying by $20 per visit. The other one, and I said, um, still you're still below where I need to be, and we still agreed to disagree, and I dropped it.
Were
So they
they
actually
like
do
United Healthcare? Did they have a significant administrative burden as well?
way more.
Way
Actually,
more. Oh,
they
okay.
were
So it
by
wasn't,
far our
they
most.
had to get like way higher than what you were collecting per visit to be worth it, considering that.
If United Healthcare would have come back and said 85, we'd have taken it.
Oh, okay.
These people came back and said 85, and we said, with your administrative burden, it needs to be $100 a visit or
Well, at any,
100.
I'm just assuming, I don't know your numbers, but I'm still thinking $85 is close to cost per visit for you.
It's like break even.
Oh, okay. And you were okay with that on United Healthcare side.
We'd have taken it still, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We'd have still done it, I think. But yeah, I think we would. And whether or
Okay.
not
I
that
mean,
was
that's fine.
smart,
No
yeah,
judgment. I'm just,
yeah.
yeah, I'm
But
just,
well, your pay per visit, you can you can get your per visit cost down into the 60s when you always have
if you're super productive with the
if you're
same
productive,
staff.
right? So
Right. I
then
get it.
and so it's not all a bad idea
No,
then.
I get it. I get it.
So
Yeah. If you've got your team being super productive, the expense rate stays the same while you're seeing more visits.
yeah,
So then your cost per visit goes down. I get it. I get
then
it.
it's
Yeah.
worth it.
It
Yeah.
just means you have to really push production and make sure that's humming, right?
You just can't have gaps in your schedule. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You gotta have a wait
Right.
list. You gotta be backfilling those people when they cancellations come, but it's
Sure.
all doable, right? We
Yeah,
do
that's
it
doable.
every winter here in Arizona. Everybody does. You get so busy you can't see everybody, and then the summers
Mhm.
it's a little softer, but
Right. Exactly.
and it's different parts of the country is
And
probably.
I do want to get into the negotiation part, but were the did you find that the that your confidence in dropping some of these insurance increased uh, because of your initial experience?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
Like
now
most people.
you're on the hunt a little bit to either negotiate or drop them, it
Yeah.
sounds like,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And since then, you've had greater confidence in negotiating and you've had some wins.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me
So
about that
like
then.
when they come back and they say, "Hey, we'll pay you, $85 versus $65," and I said, "You got to get here," and they said, "No." I said, "Okay, well then we're gonna drop you,"
Yeah.
and because I just all of the variables, it was such a small 2% of all of our
Right. Right. It's
costs,
easy
kind
to
of
lose that.
admin burden. But then with these other especially with like workers' comps. They're making the third party administrator is making so much money. There's so
So
much money
much.
there, right?
Yep, that's true.
I just recently, just last week, sent back for a second time. So I said, hey, we want to get paid, 120
Right.
per visit.
Sure.
And they come back and they said, right now we're getting 90, right?
Uh-huh.
So they come back and they say, we'll do 95. And I said, well, that's great. That's a good win. But because I'm used to, that's profitable, right?
Yeah, you're used
But,
to them saying no.
but then I said, we want 100, right? And they came back and they said, okay, we'll do
Okay.
it.
All right.
So it wasn't that hard. It was just a matter of waiting 2 weeks in between responses, and just be
Mm-hmm.
patient. And that happened with our Cigna carrier or Cigna third party
Oh,
administrator,
okay. Uh-huh.
American Specialty Health, Ash. We were able
Nice.
to do that with them too. They came back and we said, we want this. And they, same thing. It went back and forth 3 times and ended up increasing that one. And
Nice.
right now I'm in conversation with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Their methodology, I've been through this before with them
Yeah,
2 years ago and didn't get any adjustment.
I remember that.
They um they are asking the same sets of questions and they are more um their methodology isn't just ask and we'll tell you. Theirs is okay, answer these questions and establish how you're different and
Right.
they want you to plead your case.
Yeah.
And so we're still midway through that.
Yeah. We don't have the time to get into the details as to how you negotiated and whatnot. And frankly, that's a different podcast episode
Yeah.
altogether.
Well, and I don't think
And
I'm the best at it. Like I think there's
but
people
you
out.
tried. I mean, you're reaching out, you're talking to the contract service providers, right? You're actually trying to negotiate with people and
Yeah.
not just sitting around, which is, that's awesome.
Yeah. Hey, that's the difference maker. I mean, when you make a couple more dollars per visit, that's a big difference.
It's huge. It goes right into your pocket, frankly,
Yeah.
right? Because expense line should stay the same. You
Yeah.
get another $10 per visit. You extrapolate that over the course of a year and the number of visits that you see, that's just added profit, right?
Yeah.
You can do a lot for your employees, for your
Yeah.
family, for your business, expansion, et cetera, because you made a big difference.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's awesome, man.
I don't think anybody in our organization would say that was a bad decision. Everybody would be like, oh, yeah, that was the right thing to do.
Cool. Can I ask what since you started this with, I know you started with Blue Cross Blue Shield 3 years ago. They didn't make any change back then. They might now, but now that you've been through the United Healthcare, the Medicaid, and the renegotiations part, what has been the difference in your average reimbursement per visit over the course of the last 3 years?
Um, about 10% increase or so. 10,
Nice.
yeah, about
That's
10% increase.
awesome.
Um,
At
yeah,
least 10% from the numbers that I saw. I think it's at least 10%, right?
yeah.
That's
Well,
awesome.
like well, we got kind of heavy Medicare, so we were
Yeah.
before these last, what, 6 years of cuts, we were around 100. Then it's been like steadily decreasing, to
Yeah.
the mid 90s, and now
Mhm.
we're up to 106,
Yeah. Yeah.
107,
Yeah. Awesome.
and so
That's great, man.
yeah, it's a little around 10.
Yeah, I mean, and these are the things that you have to do as an owner to combat the inflationary pressures, the decreasing reimbursements, and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yep,
This is the kind of stuff that you got to start doing. You can't just sit by passively, idly by, and
yeah,
expect things to continue to go hunky dory, right?
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I like I would use when I was explaining this to my staff the watermelon truck story. A man buys a truck and fills it with watermelons and goes and sells them for $1 a melon and buys them from the grower for $1 a melon, sells them to the customer for $1 a melon, and isn't he looks back and says, "Man, I'm not doing so well. I haven't made any money." He said, "I know the solution. I need a bigger truck." You know, and so like that is what you feel like when you're seeing some of these low payers. It's like I just need to see more of these people. No, you don't need
No,
a bigger truck. You
right,
need to sell your melons for more than they cost you to make.
right, right.
So
Exactly. Yeah. I love that you're ending on that story because that's the perfect analogy for our profession.
yeah, bigger
Yeah.
truck.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. This was awesome conversation. Thanks, Mark.
You betcha. Thank you.
See you, man.